Welcome to Clean Slate by Desjardins, the podcast where there are no awkward money questions. I'm Jessica Moorhouse, and in each episode, we're going to take a look at the turning points in people's lives and explore young Canadians answering those big existential questions about their journeys and their finances. It's time to go beyond the money and see how these big questions impact everything that we do. Clean Slate is by Desjardins, a cooperative who is on a mission to enrich people's lives. They're about more than just money. They're a financial institution that believes in the spirit of community. And today I am speaking with Elena Lohse from This House 5000. Welcome, Elena.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited to have you here to chat. So let's kind of start from the beginning. What was your journey like to becoming a homeowner in Toronto? What was the most important thing that you did to save up to eventually become a homeowner?
It was definitely moving back in with my parents, even though I was like 30 years old. No, wait, I wasn't 30. I was 25, I think, and I was married. And I said, you know what? We're never going to get a house if we go downtown, get a condo, spend $2,000 a month on rent. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I think the biggest push was like, okay, can we take the sacrifice of living outside of the city, far away from our friends, far away of a commute for my husband's work? And we said, you know what, we're just going to put our heads down, focus for a couple years. We spent 4 years in my parents' basement apartment, which was beautiful, by the way. We were very lucky. And they were very generous with us on low rent. So say we would have spent $2,000 in a place downtown, we took like $1,000 off of that and just put that away every month. Did we dip into it sometimes? Yeah, life happens. Things come up, and so then we thought, well, if we just stay here a little longer, stay here a little longer, we'll be able to save enough. And we did end up saving $25,000. And it sounds low, but it was even hard to get to that point. Like, at the time, none of like anyone I knew had like any nest egg. So it's like, even though we had a tiny little nest egg, we were so proud of it and so happy. And we're like, okay, it's time to spend it and let's try to find a house. So that's what we did. That was the most important step, was just making a little sacrifice with our life and using that as like a financial boost.
Well, I guess I'm curious, how did you determine what your parameters were? What was your budget?
Right. So I knew I wanted to live in Toronto and on the West End, because basically that's where all my friends lived. And we were always driving back and forth to like hang out in the city and spend time with our friends. So I told our real estate agent I wanted to get a house that's under $500,000, because I think that's what we thought we could afford at the time. Under $500,000 on the west side, and I said south of St. Clair. So I gave her those parameters, and she would send me listings, like, as I said, a couple times a week. And that went on for like about a year. Wow. And we didn't see anything that was in our price range and anything that we thought, okay, this house has potential. So we actually spoke to, a financial advisor, and we found out we can't even afford a house that's $550,000. We actually had to try to find something less than $550,000. And at the time, that just seemed absolutely impossible. And then this golden egg came into my inbox one day, and I looked at it. And funny enough, before I even showed my husband, I showed this to my sister. And she was like, she calls me Lanes as my nickname. And she's like, Lanes, this is the one. Because she's just like, I feel like this house has potential. And the thing is, it was the price. The house was listed at $350,000. Right. And that was just really unheard of. Even in 2015, a house for $350,000, it's a semi-detached brick home. It was really still unheard of. And we went and saw it. It was 100% a fixer-upper. There was no part of the house that we thought, other than the actual box of the house, the brick box, that we thought could stay. Like carpeted floors, tiny hallways. The walls were lath and plaster, like not even drywall. Like nothing had been updated. The doors were old. The windows were old. The tile floor was from the 70s. But we said to ourselves, this is the exact location where we want to be. It's right in the junction, and that's perfect location. That was a perfect location for us. So we're like, you know what? Let's take a chance on this. I don't think we're going to see anything else under $400,000 in Toronto.
So yeah, let's talk about some of the big surprises of becoming a first-time homeowner. What were some of the things that you maybe didn't plan for or didn't realize that you had to, save up for or prepare for?
Yeah, so I guess I just forgot to Google it or something because it was like we didn't know that there was going to be two forms of land transfer tax. So it was like because we weren't first time home buyers. My husband we had a house previously 4 years ago in London, Ontario. And then that was before we moved in with my parents. And so we had to pay two forms of land transfer tax. And I don't know what the percentage is, but it was a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it was like $25,000. And it's just like, I just spent that on the down payment. Like, I don't have another $25,000. So we were very, very fortunate. My parents gave us like a little loan. And we did eventually pay them back, which was number one priority for me at the time. And so that actually put our renovation budget on hold. Actually, it put it on level non-existent. So that was a big surprise. That was something that we definitely should have looked into before just jumping into buying a house. I'm still glad that we did it, but yeah, it was a very, very privileged position to be in where we had that parental help. And I feel like a lot of millennials can relate to that. Like, it's really, really, really hard to get into the market with no help, even back then. Now is the same way. So it's kind of like, if you don't have the help, it's even harder and it's even tougher. And I honestly, my heart goes out to everybody out there that is trying to get into the housing market because it's really, really tough, especially with these taxes and different things that come up. Closing costs are huge. You have to pay out your real estate agent as well. Like, there's a lot of money that goes into even just getting in the door. And then once you're in the door, you're like, okay, well, I need new carpet. Mm-hmm. I need drywall. I need all this stuff. Labor is extremely expensive. This was pre-COVID, but now if you're talking about post-COVID, materials have gone up. So it was just really wild. So my husband knew he was going to take on a lot of the renovation work himself, and that was the only way we were going to be able to afford it. We were both still working full-time, and we just thought it's going to be kind of pay as you go. Like, I'm not a patient person just naturally, but I had to sort of like take a whole step back and be like, this is just going to happen slowly. And once I sort of got to that understanding in my mind, I was like, okay, let's just take this one step at a time. So the demo happened and we hired out a few jobs. Some jobs went to like our friend that is a contractor. Others, we just hired people. And we were trying to keep costs as low as possible. So the only thing that we hired out was some of the framing, because the house was kind of, Toronto houses. Oh yeah,
my house.
None of
them
are straight.
Yeah,
yeah. So we kind of we hired our friend to come in and put some new beams in the trusses, new trusses. I think that's the word.
I love how you're asking me. I have no idea. No idea.
Like big pieces of wood. Let's say that hold your house up together. So they came and sort of tried to get the house as level and balanced as possible. And then that was sort of behind the walls. And then we had someone also hired to do the drywall and the mudding. And then from there, my husband and I, and we had some help along the way, did everything else. So when we're talking about the flooring, the plumbing, the electrical, like everything we did ourselves. And you have to do so much research when you're dealing with electrical and plumbing.
Experience going in?
No, like nothing.
You just learned
So basically my husband watches a lot of YouTube. It's a long, long grueling process, but we didn't have the money to hire out every single trade. We just didn't have the funds to, when you're someone coming into your house, it's like $1,000 a day, $600 a day. And we just did not have the money for that, especially, as I said, we owed my parents money. We were still trying to pay off the initial renovations that happened. We had to do things like hiring a dumpster for all the demolition. It's just all these little costs that add up that you don't even think of when you're like, oh, let me just sign my name here to buy this house. But I would do it all again 100% because we love where we're at now. And, as the years go by, we are growing that equity, which gives us more and more of a cushion for the future. And the future, who knows, right? We may be able to, use the equity in our home to maybe purchase a rental property or something like that. Like that's something that we would be interested in doing. But if we didn't start back there and like go through the really, really tough renovations, go through the really, really tough financial situations that we found ourselves in, put ourselves in, we wouldn't be where we are now. So yeah, it was hard, but I would definitely do it again.
Obviously, there was so much that you needed to do with your home. You kind of had to gut the whole thing. How did you prioritize what made financial sense for you to do on your own? What made more sense to hire someone who's a professional? How did you decide all that? And how did you kind of budget for things? Like you said, there's so many things that came up. How were you able to kind of save up for these things?
So with the electrical work, as I said, we wanted to do it all right. And one of my husband's friends is an electrician, so he came and actually gave us some plans for the whole house. So when you're talking about priority and renovations, safety is first, aesthetics come later, but you want to work from like the ground up. You don't want to be like, okay, well, I want this hung, or I want this, to look like this. You have to start from inside the walls and make sure everything is good, because that's how it lasts. If you just do like a quick throw together job, things are going to break down on you easily and quickly. So
absolutely. I know, since you mentioned aesthetics, and I feel like that's a big reason why this house 5000 is so popular. How were you able to, still stay within your kind of limited budget, but make your house look so elevated and, Pinterest worthy?
Thank you very much, first of all. Secondly, I think the way I started out and the way I approached design was all about, what can I do for cheap? And when I say cheap, I just mean like, not like cheap materials, but just more so like, what can I do sustainably? So I went and just got almost everything secondhand. The only new things we had in our house when we first started was our bed and our sofa. Everything else was used furniture. I'm a big Facebook Marketplace person, or Kijiji. I look like all the time. And I think that it's even more beautiful when you have pieces in your house that have a story to them. Like we just have so much vintage stuff. And then I wanted to mix that with new elements. So that's why we got like all new drywall, all new paint, we got new flooring. And so I think it's nice to have the balance of old and new. And that's kind of the style I was going for aesthetically. And I think that when it comes to Instagram and sharing my home, I think a lot of people resonated with the fact that this is accessible. It's not like we had a bunch of teams and a designer and a stylist come in here and do this whole house. It really came together piece by piece.
When did you start documenting the process of renovating your home? And then also, you were able to build a significant audience and become now an influencer, a content creator. At what point then were you able to use this brand that you created to help fund some of those renovations?
So we started documenting in 2018. And the first thing I shared was my bathroom, and it was just newly renovated, and I was so excited to share it. And I was also nervous because before I was just sort of sharing inspo, not really anything about me. Like I'm just thinking I'm a nobody, who cares about my house? But once I actually saw that people were interested, I became more interested. I became more interested in sharing my home. And I loved answering people's questions, and I loved showing them what tools we were using, and I loved showing them what materials we were using, and how we were doing this on a budget, and why we were doing this ourselves. And I was a very open book from the beginning, saying listen, man, we're broke. We're just trying to make it. And I think that people started joining my community and thinking, yeah, this is something I could maybe do myself. And it was really, really funny to see that switch. My first paid job for an Instagram ad was in 2020, and they paid me $350 for a post, and I thought I was rich. I was like, wow. I could not believe it. Because at my job, I think it took me pretty much a whole week to make $350. So I was stunned that I could just post an image on Instagram and someone paid me $350. I was stunned. My eyes were open to this whole new world. And I believe I had about around 85,000 followers on Instagram before I even made one dime. Mm-hmm. So it's like I put a lot of time and effort into that to grow that audience trust before I got any paid money for it. And it really tells you that this was not about the money. Like, this all happened kind of as a fluke. And once I realized that this could be a business, this could be a money-making venture, and that's when it started making enough money to help pay for all of our future renovations. Like, our entire kitchen project, which I don't mind sharing the figures, our kitchen project, even with doing a lot of the work ourselves, 90% of the work ourselves, costed like $35,000. Just for materials. Like, literally, we were doing all the work ourselves, and it still costed $35K. So it's like, that was 100% completely funded by the money that I get paid to post ads on Instagram. So I believe that started at the very beginning of 2021 is when I started booking jobs that allowed us to save the money. And there really aren't very many industry standards set in with like how much money you can make on a post. It really varies. And it's kind of like a hush-hush thing. And that's what I don't like about money talk. People don't want to talk about it, and I'm like, why? So it's like I really only have a small network of peers who are also content creators that are okay to talk about the numbers, but that's how I found out so much information. I'm always open. Anyone watching this, you want to talk to me about money, I'm in.
I love that. I love hearing that. Since you kind of mentioned it, where do you kind of see things going? What is your kind of vision for the future?
So as I mentioned before, we want to save up a little bit more money and be able to buy a rental property. I'm not sure where, but that would be my next big venture. And I think that would be really interesting for my audience to watch me do, because they've seen me grow from being nothing into where I am at now. And that's where we want to go next, because we love home, anything home.
You mentioned, different streams of income, and, that is very important to kind of, in terms of financial independence. What are some kind of unexpected different streams of income you were able to kind of discover or unlock?
So recently, my husband was hired to do some custom shelving for a local massage clinic, and it's been kind of a thing that he has wanted to get into, working with side jobs, and like we definitely want to get him a construction shop at some point. And that'll be another fun thing that we can share in our future. We've received lots of messages of people saying, can he build this for me? Can he build that for me? And his name is Christoph, but he actually has the nickname Bob the Builder, because the guy builds, like he just builds. He can build anything. Like, I have so much confidence in his skills. So it's kind of cool to see that like this has turned into a little job for him.
Those are great tips for like making your house just kind of, next level. But since now you have so many years under your belt of being a homeowner, what kind of tips would you have for anyone wanting to enter kind of the housing market, buy, their first home, anything that you're like, oh, I wish I knew this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to say a comment first. It's tough out there, and I feel for everybody out there who's trying to get into the market now. But I would say don't settle just because you're dying to get a house. I would say look around, make sure you know what you want, whether you want a condo, do you want a detached home, are you willing to move outside of the city? These are big questions that you need to be able to answer to yourself. And I guess financially, my advice would be don't overextend yourself. That's what we did, and it was really rough for a couple of years. There were some times where we were thinking, I don't know how we're going to get out of this. It was looking a little hairy there for, I would say, like a good 3 years. And
wow.
that was really tough. And it can be tough on your marriage or if you're, not married, just anything, just life.
No, I know lots of people probably look to you, you're a homeowner in Toronto. That's already, a huge milestone. You have this amazing brand, this House 5000. What does success or even the term financial independence mean to you?
I feel like I'm not there yet. Personally, I wouldn't call myself financially free yet, but I think that it's doing little steps and reaching little goals that are going to help you in your future. But basically, I would say look towards your goals in the future of where you would like to be and start taking little steps now that you can do. And it is tough because life is expensive. Like, look at gas prices. Where are we going with this? So it's like, yeah, it's really, really hard now. But if you look 5-10 years into your future of where you want to be, and you just start trying to wrap your mind around, how can I get there? And I feel like financial freedom, hopefully I do get there myself as well, is going to be when you're a little bit older, things have more calmed down, you have lived more life, you've had more life experiences. There's going to be ups and downs, and those are okay. But I feel like when you do get to a point where you feel financially free, it'll be like, but I put in the work for that. And I think it's going to be all the more rewarding if it wasn't just handed to you. You know, if you put in the work, that's, I think, is going to make me feel financially free. So just something where it's like, I have money coming in, I feel safe, I have money set aside, and I think that kind of freedom will be really, really nice in the future. But we're working on it now, and I hope that's what everyone else out there is doing too.
Thank you so much, Elena, for coming here, chatting with me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate you taking an interest, and I'm always open to share if anyone has any questions after this.
See, asking questions about money isn't so embarrassing, is it? All you have to do is start the conversation. Now, I made this podcast with Desjardins because they believe that you need to start early to build a solid financial mindset. Good habits lead to great results. There are so many amazing stories out there that help us answer those big questions we all have. But it's really important to talk about these things without taboos or judgment. I hope you enjoyed what Elena had to say. Click to listen to the next episode of Clean Slate by Desjardins, the institution whose mission is to enrich people's lives and build community. For now, I'm signing off, and I hope you'll join me for the next one.